North Korea has shipped more than 15,800 containers of ammunition to Russia over 18 months, becoming a critical supplier to the Kremlin in its war against Ukraine. As Newsweek reports, an analysis using satellite imagery and detailed 3D images of the ships and their cargo identified at least 64 shipments from North Korea to Russia between August 2023 and March 2025. The report states that the Russian military received approximately 4.2 to 5.8 million rounds of ammunition through these deliveries. It is indicated that 4 Russian-flagged cargo ships were involved in transporting the North Korean ammunition: Angara, Lady R, Maria, and Maya 1. The North Korean flow of munitions allows Russia to maintain offensive momentum and undermines the effectiveness of Western military aid to Ukraine, the report said. If left unchecked, this flow of weapons could tilt the battlefield even further in the Russians' favor and precipitate broader security risks in both Europe and East Asia, the analyst said. Russia has had to seek external support for its war and ailing economy as the invasion dragged on for much longer than it expected, after a resilient Ukraine backed by the military might of the US put up a strong defense. Moscow has largely relied on North Korea and Iran for additional military hardware, and China for big purchases of oil and other resources to keep its economy afloat following punitive Western sanctions. The South's Joint Chiefs of Staff said North Korea has also been sending more missiles, artillery equipment and ammunition to help Russia, and that North Korea could increase its weapons supplies further depending on the war situation. The military equipment North Korea has sent to Russia includes a considerable amount of short-range ballistic missiles, 170mm self-propelled howitzers and around 220 units of 240mm multiple rocket launchers. North Korea has sent approximately 11,000 military personnel to fight in the war against Ukraine in its first involvement in a large-scale conflict since the 1950-53 Korean War, and the Joint Chiefs assessed that around 4,000 of them have been killed or wounded.
Attack drones have become the dominant killer on the front lines in Ukraine, The Sun reports. Western officials' figures suggest that 8 out of 10 soldiers killed or wounded were attacked remotely by devices piloted by young soldiers, often many miles from the front lines, the article says. Citing officials, it is noted that drones have replaced traditional artillery strikes on targets and now accounts for 70 to 80% of losses among Russian and Ukrainian troops. Officials also added that Ukraine is being attacked by at least 100 drones daily, about one every 15 minutes. These kamikaze drones are cheap to produce and very effective. They can hover in a specific area before being assigned a target to attack. As former British Army intelligence officer Phil Ingram noted, it is clear that drones have changed the nature of modern warfare. These astonishing figures show that drones will play a significant role in all future military campaigns. British defence experts warn that the nature of warfare is rapidly changing, calling for the UK to start building its own squadrons of attack drones. Ukrainian drone operators are now so effective that they have become a prime target for Russian counterstrikes. If they spot a drone operator, everything comes at us, said drone pilot Sergeant Major Vasily. In addition, it is noted that Ukraine has developed Trojan horse drones containing computer viruses. They are designed to help reveal the location of Russian drone operators. It is also reported that from January to March of this year alone, Russia launched 10,500 glide bombs at Ukraine. It is emphasized that the Russians have turned these so-called dumb bombs into precision weapons. Last year, Russia announced it had begun developing a new glide bomb called the Drel, based on cluster munitions that are banned in more than 100 countries. Several teams of Ukrainian developers have created an anti-aircraft drone that will work against Russian Shaheeds. This was stated on air by the chairman of the NGO Aerorazvedka, Yaroslav Gonchar, on Ukrainian radio. He noted that our developers are working in all directions, including to neutralize not only attack drones, but also reconnaissance drones of the Russians. And the direction of neutralizing the threat when it is already in the air. This is not a trivial task. All these Orlans, Supercam, Zala, but Shahed is a different class, and the technology of anti-aircraft drones does not fit Shahed head-on. He explained and added that Ukrainian developers are working to ensure such a capability. The Ukrainians have made an anti-aircraft drone that will work against the Shahed, and we are already quite close. This is happening. Regarding the destruction of the source of the threat itself, it is both dispersed and deep behind enemy lines, he said. In Borova direction, Kharkiv Oblast, Russians launched a hurried counterattack to try and halt the 3rd Assault Brigade's advance. However, the attack failed disastrously as the elite Ukrainian unit turned the Russian assault into a massacre, shredding nearly half a Russian battalion in one day alone, according to Euromaidan Press media outlet. The Ukrainian goal is to undermine the upcoming Russian spring offensive towards Borova and Lyman by launching a crushing counterattack to eliminate the Russian bridgehead over the Zerebets River, which the Russians planned to use to launch their offensive. The Russians understood the critical nature of the situation, so they launched a hurried response across the front line to stop the Ukrainian advance. Due to the shortage of armored vehicles, Russian forces were forced to rely solely on infantry, saving their limited armored reserve for the final offensive itself. Euromaidan Press says. Additionally, the marshy riverbanks and lack of viable crossing points forced Russians to deploy makeshift pontoon bridges meant to allow large groups of infantry to make it across and overwhelm the Ukrainian defences. However, due to the makeshift bridges' proximity to Ukrainian lines, Ukrainians were able to detect, target and destroy them almost immediately. The 3rd Assault Brigade had established strong defences here, locking down and preventing any Russian infiltration attempt through them, as these defences proved insurmountable in the previous months of Russian attempts to do so. For this reason, Russian commanders decided to launch their attacks across open fields instead, assuming that the losses, while high, would still be lower than if they tried to take on Ukrainian defences head-on. Euromaidan Press reports, to avoid immediate and complete destruction. Russian soldiers used tactics specifically meant to reduce casualties to drone strikes by keeping a large distance between them and only moving in pairs of 2 soldiers at a time. Unfortunately for Russians, Ukrainians had enough drones in reserve as they released a 2.5-minute compilation of close to 100 individual FPV drone strikes. However, as the assault force consisted entirely of infantry, Ukrainians deployed specific 5 to 7-inch large kamikaze drones, which are very fast and agile due to their small size. While their agility was high enough to allow Ukrainians to hit the smaller targets individual Russian soldiers presented, they still carried enough explosive payload to achieve the desired effect. Ukrainians also deployed reconnaissance drones to observe the effectiveness of the kamikaze strikes, armed with drone-dropped grenades to finish off any misses. These drones could also point out targets for the FPV drone operators, allowing for maximum efficiency. During the defense, Euromaidan Press says, during the Russian assault, Russians lost over 229 soldiers, nearly half a Russian battalion in one day. During the whole week of 3rd Assault Brigade operations, they managed to eliminate a total of 446 Russian soldiers, 16 artillery pieces, dozens of armoured vehicles and trucks in the rear, and 10 makeshift bridges Russians deployed to facilitate the crossing. Overall, the 3rd Assault Brigade has successfully thwarted the Russian attempt to salvage their bridgehead across the Zerebets River, allowing for a continued push to eliminate and clear the remaining Russians from the area fully.